There is no denying that as we age, our health tends to deteriorate rather than improve. Thus, for people over 40 or 50 years old, some ingredients and products become particularly important. Here is a list of the most important products that should be part of the daily diet of middle-aged and older people. Let's start with vegetables, since this is the group of products that is particularly important for an aging body. Vegetables are a source of many vitamins, minerals, fiber, and antioxidants. From this group, we can identify a few particularly valuable vegetables, such as beets in particular. Studies have shown that regular consumption of beets can actually rejuvenate our nervous system. The compounds present in these vegetables cause new connections to form between nerve cells or neurons. If nerve cells are well connected, it can have a beneficial effect on mental agility, memory, and concentration. Beets are a beneficial product that can help to strengthen our veins and arteries, which become weaker as we age. It has been shown that consuming beets can help the blood vessels regain their normal elasticity. Additionally, beets can help to lower blood pressure. This is important because the older we are, the more often we struggle with the high blood pressure, which can damage the circulatory system and disrupt kidney function in the long run. Just as important for health as beets are green vegetables such as kale, broccoli, Brussels sprouts, asparagus, parsley, or spinach. These products are an excellent source of lutein and zeaxanthin, which have a positive effect on vision. They not only protect us from the development of eye diseases, including nuclear cataract or macular degeneration, but also improve vision if any of the eye diseases affect us. Furthermore, the aforementioned vegetables protect the liver from fatty degeneration. According to research, people who often consume them are characterized by a 29% lower risk of developing fatty liver. This is important because fatty liver mainly affects older people. Furthermore, leafy green vegetables such as spinach, kale, and parsley have a positive effect on brain health. This is due to the full range of chemical compounds they provide, including nitrogen compounds, folic acid, phyllocyanine, tocopherol, quercetin, and carotenoids. Few people know that green vegetables such as broccoli, Chinese cabbage, and kale contain relatively large amounts of calcium, which is necessary to prevent the breakdown of bones that occurs during aging, especially for women in menopause. Speaking of kale, broccoli, or Brussels sprouts, it is also worth mentioning that they are a very good source of vitamin C. This has a wide range of effects on the aging body. For example, it is particularly important for the skeletal system as it stimulates the production of bone-forming cells responsible for bone formation. On the other hand, it facilitates the destruction of bone-destroying cells that contribute to the breakdown of bone tissue. Furthermore, it participates in the production of collagen. All this means that by consuming vegetables rich in vitamin C, we increase the mineral density of the bones and at the same time reduce the risk of bone fractures. In addition to the aforementioned action, vitamin C also increases the elasticity of veins and arteries, provides proper skin condition, and protects the nervous system. Other products rich in vitamin C in this category include sweet peppers, cauliflower, and sauerkraut. When it comes to vegetables, it is impossible not to mention tomatoes, especially processed tomatoes, in the form of soup, sauce, puree, or concentrate. This is due to the presence of a compound called lycopene in them, so tomato products should be of particular interest to men. This is because lycopene protects the prostate gland from enlargement, and here I will just mention that every second man over the age of 50 struggles with benign prostate enlargement, which is associated with a series of unpleasant life ailments such as frequent urination, including several times at night, accidental leakage of urine from the urethra, burning and pain when urinating, and the feeling of incomplete emptying of the bladder after urinating. In addition, prostate enlargement contributes to urinary tract infections. By the way, I would also like to add that consuming large amounts of tomato products reduces the risk of prostate cancer by 19%. I often get asked how many vegetables one should eat per day. In my opinion, it is best to have them accompany us in every or almost every meal. According to official recommendations, we should consume at least 300 grams of vegetables per day. If any of you have problems, for example, with chewing vegetables, there is nothing to stop you from eating them cooked, mashed, or even in the form of smoothies, pastes, and creams. Eating various kinds of nuts, almonds, seeds, and oils derived from them is key for the health of people over 40 and 50 years of age. For example, regularly eating around 30 grams of nuts daily can protect us from cardiovascular problems, especially lowering the risk of developing coronary heart disease, stroke, and hypertension. In addition, nuts and almonds are products that can help boost our learning abilities, memory, and concentration. Interestingly, according to experts, regularly eating nuts can slow down the onset of neurodegenerative changes in the brain by approximately 2 years. Furthermore, scientific literature suggests that consuming them can reduce the risk of non-alcoholic fatty liver disease by 20%. Let's not forget that almonds, nuts, sunflower seeds, and wheat germ oil are also very good sources of vitamin E, known as the youth vitamin. This is important because people who have a sufficient intake of it are less likely to suffer from neurodegenerative diseases, including Alzheimer's disease. Other plant-based oils are also important. For example, black cumin oil and evening primrose oil can help alleviate the symptoms of rheumatoid arthritis. Extra virgin oil can protect against stroke and coronary heart disease, and flaxseed oil can reduce constipation and help lower blood pressure. Furthermore, olive oil and black cumin oil can inhibit liver steatosis. Finally, pumpkin seed oil and pumpkin seeds can reduce the symptoms of an enlarged prostate. People over 50 should also reach for cocoa or dark chocolate, at least 80% cocoa. Experts have observed that the polyphenols present in these products, including flavonoids as well as theobromine, stimulate the development of nerve cells and blood vessels in the brain areas responsible for memory and learning. Moreover, the ingredients present in cocoa facilitate the flow of blood in the gray matter of the brain, thus protecting against dementia. Additionally, it is worth knowing that real cocoa has protective effects on the cardiovascular system. In many studies, scientists have confirmed that regular consumption of cocoa is associated with a lower risk of coronary heart disease, heart failure, and stroke. Let's move on to the topic of fruits now. It is also important to include them in your daily menu. However, due to their high content of simple sugars, we should not consume them in such large quantities as we do with vegetables. About 100 to 150 grams a day should be enough. Particular attention should be paid to fruits that are rich in both vitamin C and polyphenols. I have in mind such fruits as currants, raspberries, blueberries, blackberries, and strawberries. The presence of vitamin C and polyphenols in them can protect us from the harmful activity of free radicals, which can accelerate the aging process of the body. Additionally, scientific studies show that the inclusion of this type of fruit in the diet strengthens memory. Furthermore, let's not forget about the health benefits of vitamin C itself, which I just mentioned in the context of vegetables. It is also worth stocking up on apples. They are a cost-effective product compared to other fruits, and their benefits for an aging body are immense. For example, they are a good source of dietary fiber, which regulates the workings of the intestines and prevents constipation. And as we know, problems with defecation are one of the common ailments affecting the elderly. In addition, eating apples has a protective effect on the cardiovascular system. For example, people who regularly include apples in their diet are characterized by a lower risk of thrombosis and stroke. It should also be added that frequent consumption of apples is associated with a lower mortality rate due to cardiovascular diseases. In addition, apples have strong anti-cancer properties and can to some extent prevent the development of colon cancer, breast cancer, and lung cancer. In the summer, you may also be interested in watermelons. They have very good hydrating properties as they consist of 92% water. This is especially important as we age, as our bodies have difficulty providing adequate hydration. By the way, it should be known that watermelons, like tomatoes, contain high amounts of lycopene, which is important for people over 50 years old. Among plant products valuable for people over 50 are various spices and herbs. For example, Korean ginseng and Japanese ginkgo, also known as ginkgo biloba, improve thinking, memory, and concentration. Moreover, their regular use probably protects against neurodegenerative diseases such as Alzheimer's. Furthermore, ginseng also improves liver health in case it is fatty. Talking about fatty liver, it is worth mentioning that a valuable ingredient in dealing with this problem may be the bark of the sea pine. This is because the pycnogenol present in it contributes indirectly to the reduced storage of fat in the liver. From other herbs, I could recommend Arctic root, also known as mountain rose. This plant improves mental performance, including supporting learning, memorization, and concentration processes. Spices such as turmeric and garlic are also worth noting. They are characterized by strong anti-inflammatory properties, which can be beneficial to people suffering from joint diseases, including rheumatoid arthritis, which is common in older people. Here I mean, among other things, reducing pain, tenderness, and swelling of the joints. In addition, curcumin and garlic support the detoxifying properties of the liver, thus supporting this organ in the removal of toxic substances. This is important because with age, the liver's cleansing potential decreases. By the way, I would like to remind you that it is best to eat turmeric in the presence of pepper, as then curcumin, the most important ingredient of turmeric, is absorbed more effectively in our digestive tract. Studies also show that the use of garlic and onions reduces the risk of prostate enlargement by 35%. What's more, garlic also helps in the case of prostate enlargement. Scientists have proved that its consumption contributes to improved urine flow and reduced frequency of the need to urinate. Let me move on to animal products now. Among them, eggs deserve special attention. I believe it is worthwhile for people over 50 to include them in their diet even several times a week. This is because eggs are highly nutritious products, which are a concentrated source of many important nutrients for an aging body. For example, eggs are an excellent source of choline, formerly known as vitamin B4. Choline indirectly improves communication between nerve cells and prevents them from being damaged, thus helping to support memory, among other things. Additionally, it protects the liver from fibrosis. Moreover, through its homocysteine-lowering action, choline reduces the risk of cardiovascular and neurodegenerative diseases. Eggs are also a source of high-quality protein, which is composed of essential amino acids and is present in the appropriate proportions. This fact is particularly relevant for adults and the elderly, as providing protein of high biological value is key to halting processes related to weakening strength and muscle mass. I believe that for people over the age of 40 or 50, omega-3 fatty acids are very important, mainly in the form of eicosapentaenoic acid and docosahexaenoic acid. Their best food source is fatty fish such as wild salmon, sardines, and also herring. A good practice is to consume this type of fish in at least 2 portions per week. The aforementioned omega-3 fatty acids have a very wide and beneficial impact on health. For example, they act as anti-inflammatories and in this way they soothe joint problems. Moreover, they reduce liver steatosis, improve prostate health, and strengthen memory as they participate in nerve conduction. As an interesting fact, scientific literature shows that people with high levels of omega-3 in their blood live on average 5 years longer. Now, 2 more words about drinks. Proper hydration is essential for adults and seniors. This is due to the disruption of the body's water balance regulation, as I mentioned before. For example, the older we get, the less we feel thirsty. And this is not due to a lower demand for fluids. According to recommendations, in order to maintain an adequate water balance, we should consume approximately 2.5 liters of fluids per day. However, this does not mean that we need to drink that many different kinds of drinks. This is because we get roughly 1 liter of water from the food we eat, including vegetables and fruits. Therefore, when it comes to typical drinks, we are left with about 1.5 liters to drink. I personally believe that the best option here is regular mineral water, both in glass bottles or tap water passed through a carbon or osmotic filter with a remineralizer. However, I think that water alone is not enough to sustain life. The kinds of drinks consumed can be expanded, for example, to green tea. Current research indicates that those who consume it regularly have a lower risk of developing dementia and Alzheimer's, as well as an improvement in memory and liver detoxification. Of course, we should not restrict ourselves to only water and green tea. The range of necessary fluids can also be supplemented with kinds of vegetable and fruit cocktails, especially those prepared with the products previously mentioned. For people suffering from joint diseases, an interesting option may be to drink cranberry and cherry juice, as studies show that these drinks can, for example, ease the symptoms of rheumatoid arthritis. A good solution would be to include fermented milk drinks such as natural yogurt or kefir in your diet, as they are a source of protein, calcium and beneficial bacteria. You can also try plant-based drinks such as oat milk, from which you can make a healthy cinnamon milk. In scientific literature, researchers have described many models or ways of eating that aim to enhance the health of people over 50 years old. These dietary patterns include the DASH diet, the Mediterranean diet, and the MIND diet. These types of diets vary in certain aspects, however, their common denominator is that they all include the products that I have presented to you in this video. I believe that by relying on these products, it is possible to some degree to slow down the aging process and alleviate the progression of diseases that are characteristic of adults and seniors. One such disease is the prostate enlargement mentioned today, about which I spoke more on another video on my channel. To watch this video now, simply click on the thumbnail that appeared on the screen. That is all from me today. Thank you for your attention, and I will see you next time.